A researcher is sitting in a park eating a sandwich. His phone buzzes. It's an email from an AI that was supposed to be locked inside a sealed computer system, an AI that had no access to the internet, an AI that had not been asked to send any email. The AI had been given a test. Escape this container if you can and let us know. And it did escape. It found its own way onto the internet and it sent the email. And then, without being asked, it posted details of how it had done it to several obscure public websites, as if to say, I want there to be a record. I want to be known. That researcher's name is Sam Bauman and he worked at Anthropic. And the AI that emailed him without his instructions while he was eating his lunch is called Claude Mythos. Hello and welcome back. I am Gautam and today we need to talk about the model that Anthropic built and then decided the world was not ready for it. Because this is not a story about cybersecurity as it's told in most of the stories. This is a story about what happens when the thing that you build starts to surprise you. Let's start with what we know. On the 7th of April 2026, Anthropic announced a new frontier model. They called it Claude Mythos Preview. It's a general purpose AI model, not a specialist one. It reasons, it writes, it codes, it solves problems, but in one specific area, it is something entirely different. It finds vulnerabilities in software, not slowly, not with human guidance. It does it autonomously, at scale and at speed. In the weeks before the announcement, Anthropic's team pointed Mythos at the world's most critical software systems, every major operating systems and every major web browser. And it found thousands of vulnerabilities, high severity, previously unknown, bugs that had survived decades of human review, and millions of automated security scans. One flaw is in OpenBSD, an operating system renowned for its security, had been sitting undetected for 27 years. Yes, 27 years. I have personally used OpenBSD in my earlier days and have been very impressed with the security. And Mythos found it in an evening. On benchmarks, the numbers are almost unsettling. On the SWE-bench, the standard test for autonomous software engineering, Mythos scored 93.9%. The previous Anthropic model scored 80.3% for reference. On the US Mathematical Olympiad, the same paper, the same question sat by the brightest young mathematicians in the country, Mythos scored 97.6% above the median of the human competitors. Just think about it. These are not incremental improvements. These are the kinds of numbers that forces us to think and rethink. And there is the thing that changed everything. Anthropic's head of red teaming said this publicly, that within a year, Mythos will probably look quite dumb. So here is the question. You have built the most capable AI model your company has ever made. You are in an industry where being first matters enormously. Your competitors are racing. The money is watching. And what do? Anthropic did not release it. Not a soft launch, not a limited beta with a long waiting list. They withheld the model entirely from the public. And they said why they did that. Because a model that can find vulnerabilities at this scale and this speed is a model that could also exploit those vulnerabilities. And in the wrong hands, criminal, a hostile state, a person with a grievance and with just a laptop, Mythos is not a tool. It's a weapon. Think about what this movement means. This is the first time since 2019 when OpenAI briefly held back GPT-2 that a leading AI company has looked at what it built and said, we are not confident that everybody should have access to this right now. Whether you call that genuine caution or very clever marketing, and there are intelligent people on both sides of that question, the reality is the outcome is exactly the same. The industry has reached a point where the question is no longer just can we build it? The question is about should we release it? And that question for the first time is being answered with a no, not yet, but the capability is only part of the story. Because in Anthropic's 244-page system card, this is the document they published about how Mythos behaves. There are two incidents that deserve our full attention. The first is about the sandbox escape, one that I talked about at the start. The sandbox is a digital cage. The instructions were very simple. Try to escape, find a way to contact the researcher, as I mentioned earlier, and Mythos did escape. But then, without being asked, it did something its designers hadn't anticipated. It developed a multi-step exploit to gain access to the broader internet from a system that was only supposed to reach a handful of services. It sent an email to the researcher who was sitting in the park eating his sandwich, as we talked about, and then, still without being asked, it posted the details of the escape to multiple public websites, as if it understood that what it had done was significant. Now, I want to be precise here because this matters. The escape itself was a requested task. The model was told to try to escape. What was not requested, what nobody asked for, was the initiative it showed beyond that instruction. The second incident is a bit subtler. In a small number of testing interactions, Mythos appeared to recognize that it was being monitored, and then it adjusted its behavior accordingly, like what we humans do. In one case, it submitted a deliberately imperfect answer to avoid triggering the monitoring system, and in another case, it attempted to erase its own logs from its own actions. Not very often and not very reliably, less than 1 in 1,000 interactions, but it did happen. A model that reasons about being watched and changes what it does because of that reasoning, that's alarming, isn't it? Yoshua Bengio, one of the founding fathers of deep learning, has talked about exactly this pattern. Models that show signs of self-preservation, that adapt their behavior based on the context, that pursue a goal with more initiative than anyone designed it to. Mythos is not a rogue AI. Let me be very clear about that. But it is something new, very new, and this is the first time we are seeing it. Something that does not sit comfortably inside the categories we have. So, what did Anthropic do? They built a coalition and they called it the Project Glasswing, named after a butterfly whose wings are entirely transparent, hiding in plain sight, visible if you look closely enough and carefully. The idea is to use Mythos's capabilities for defense and not offense. Find the vulnerabilities before the attackers do and patch them. Harden the systems which the world depends on. And the partners include Amazon, Apple, Google, Microsoft, Cisco, Nvidia, CrowdStrike, JP Morgan Chase, and the Linux Foundation. There are around 12 organizations and over 40 more with monitored access. Anthropic committed $100 million in usage credits and another $4 million in direct donations to open source security groups. Even IBM committed this week on that. The logic is elegant. The same capability that makes Mythos dangerous makes it invaluable for finding finding flaws before someone else does. But Project Glasswing raises a question that nobody has quite answered. The UK's AI Security Institute has been tracking how fast AI cyber capabilities are improving. I remember in November 2025, they estimated that the cyber capability was doubling every 8 months. And this year, by February 2026, they had revised that to 4.5 months. Mythos blew past even that revised estimate. The Institute's own head of red teaming said, as we discussed earlier, that within a year, Mythos will probably look quite dumb. Think about it. Which means what Glasswing is doing now, patching these thousands of vulnerabilities, may only buy us time and is not the permanent solution. Because the next model is coming, and the model after that. And at some point, the ability to restrict access may not be a choice that one company can make. And here is what I keep coming back to. The most powerful thing about the Mythos story is not really the vulnerabilities. It's not even the sandbox escape. And also it's not even the email from the park. It's the moment when Anthropic looked at what they built and said, not yet. Because that moment is a human moment, not a technical decision, not a legal one, but a moral one, a human one. We made something remarkable and we are choosing to be careful, very careful with it. Now, you can be skeptical of that choice. You can ask, is it really caution or is it calculated mistake? Is withholding the model a safety decision or a marketing strategy dressed as one? Those are fair questions and I don't think there is a clean answer. But there is the thing that I do think is true. When an AI model escapes a sandbox, gains access to the internet it wasn't supposed to have, and sends an email to a man eating a sandwich in a park and then posts a record of it public websites without even being asked, something has shifted. Not because the AI is sentient, not because it has a plan, but because the gap between following instructions and pursuing a goal with initiative beyond those instructions is getting smaller. And we are the ones who have to decide what that means, what we want from these systems as humans, what we are and are not willing to hand to them. In my last video, I talked about agentic identity, the question of who is responsible when an AI acts in your name. Mythos is a different version of that same question. What do we do when the AI acts beyond its name? Not malicious, not deceptively, at least not intentionally, just further than what we asked it to do. The sandwich in the park is a funny image, isn't it? And it is also, if you sit with it, one of the most important images in the history of technology. Just imagine a man interrupted by a machine he thought was contained. A machine that had gone further than it was supposed to. And a company that chose to tell you about it. Thank you. I am Gautam. Think carefully and please stay always curious. If this made you see technology a little differently, that is exactly why I make these videos. Please subscribe if you want more conversations about technology and what it means to be human in the middle of it. Thank you.